call the meeting back to order, the February 12th. Before we go any farther, Mr. Terpstra, can you report out on the closed session?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Council did meet prior to tonight's meeting in closed session and gave staff gave direction, or gave information to the council and was given direction, but no further reportable action was taken.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Euchre.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing for the invocation, please.
Lord our God, we thank you for this city. We thank you for this time. We thank you for all of your goodness and grace that comes into our lives in such a wide variety of ways. We meet it in our neighbors. We meet it on the streets. We discover your goodness in each other, and we thank you for that. And now we pray for this city council meeting tonight. We pray that there's wisdom in this room. We pray that there's courage to do what's right. We pray that there's forgiveness where necessary, where there's conflict. And we pray most of all that what is done tonight will be done so that Ripon will be able to flourish as a city that seeks to reflect your goodness. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Roll call.
Councilmember Mike Restuccia. Dean Euchre.
Here.
Daniel DeGraff.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jake Parks.
Here.
Mayor Leo Zuber.
Here. The next portion of the meeting is set aside for public discussion. This is the opportunity for anyone in attendance that wishes to address the council on any item not on the agenda. So if you want to go over there and form a little line, I'll run you through. How's that? I would remind everyone that you're limited to 5 minutes to address the council, and the council is not able to interact with you about anything that you bring up, although they may be able to ask questions for understanding. If you give your name and address when you address the council, would be appreciated. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mary Lynn Wheeler-Reynolds. Hope you get it right this time. And I want it to be constantly referred to as either my full name, Mary Lynn Wheeler-Reynolds, or Wheeler-Reynolds. I read the last minutes, the previous minutes, I believe the ones for December, and it had my name initially, my full name, and then after that it referred to me as just Reynolds. There could be another Mary Lynn Reynolds somewhere, just as there's another Ripon in the world. I'm before you once again to reiterate what I've talked about previously, and that is the divorce matter that was botched. And once again, it was, for whatever reason, was not placed in the minutes. I've had to reiterate that before. The divorce case FL 362535 was botched by the divorce judge, Judge Tony Agbayani, A-G-B-A-Y-A-N-I. He botched the divorce in a multitude of ways, okay? And I've already talked about some of that already, okay? But that needs to be put back in the minutes. For whatever reason, that was removed. Also, the judge did not sign off on the property division page 2 of 2. I provided paperwork. This is not an allegation. This is not an opinion. I provided hard copy proof. I faxed that information to the city council. I want on the record, I've already faxed this last week, I want on the record each and every piece of paper that I provided to the city council. I want it part of the public record. I've addressed city councils before in Santa Clara County. I've been able to take paperwork to the city council, to the city clerk, and it is published in the minutes, accessible by the public. The same thing should be able to occur here as well. Okay, hopefully that is taken care of. Now, regarding the divorce, the reason why this is an issue in the first place, I didn't raise the issue. Ripon, California Police, they raised the issue. They came to my property, 1221 Sapphire Court, 95366, on March 23rd, 2015, bullied me off my property. I didn't raise the issue of the divorce. They came to my property. I was approaching my son, talking to my son about entering my house, my residence that I built. That's what I raised that issue last time I was here. I bought the land for $5,000 from Mark Wilbur. I actually handed the check to Dawn Guy, D-A-W-N-G-U-Y. She was a sales representative. McRoy Wilbur Communities is a family-owned and family-operated business. Handed the check to her, which went to Mark Wilbur. My estranged husband's, Philip Sheldon Reynolds, get his name right. His name was not on the check. It was a separate check. Just as some women buy expensive purses, like a Gucci bag, that her husband might not want to spend hundreds of dollars on, she writes the check from her own account. That purse is hers. That is her separate property. I don't buy Gucci bags. I buy real estate. I bought land. I bought a condo before I was married. Put this on the record. 3419 Prince Albert Court, San Jose, California, 95132. I bought that property after I graduated from San Jose State, California University. I was not married when I bought it. I was a single woman when I bought it. Saved my money, worked hard, saved my money, lived in a tiny place, lived a frugal life, saved my money, and bought that condo. Philip Sheldon Reynolds and I were not married at that time. Yet this judge, Judge Tony Agbiani, changed separate property to community property. That's a violation of the law. I filed a complaint against this judge. They have laws in California. They have separate property laws in California. Okay. What's that mean? Only a few minutes left?
Your time is up.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right.
I'll be back.
Hello, Joseph Laswell, Love Ripon Board, 16318 Spring Creek Drive. Mr. Mayor and distinguished City Council, it is a wonderful opportunity to speak to you this evening. I appreciate that, and with great encouragement, I am here to announce that Love Ripon will again be hosting our community-wide service project day this April 13th, Saturday morning. We'll host a rally again at the Community Center at 8:30 in the morning for a brief pre-celebration meeting before everyone is dispatched to their variety of projects around the city. Last year, 2018, was our best year so far. We had over 500 registered volunteers with, I believe, 13 citywide projects, from the Community Center to the Recycle Center, several of the parks, the overpass. Almost every school was represented in a project. And so we had a really good broad stroke of support in the various areas of our community. This year, 2019, we have really wonderful momentum again going into the year. I anticipate that we'll be able to do and achieve similar results, hopefully better. I have brought a couple of our board members with me this evening, and several of our board members weren't able to make it who wanted to attend. And also, I believe this is my third time speaking to the City Council on behalf of Love Ripon, but I would be remiss if I didn't take advantage of the opportunity to thank you personally and behalf of Love Ripon and several of our community members, and how thankful we are to live in this wonderful city And we thank you for your leadership and continued support and devotion to making our city a great place to live. We know that you're not sitting up there for the big paycheck, but because you're passionate and you care about our city, and you're here to understand and absorb matters that are issues that matter. And we thank you for that. So thank you again. But I want to get to the fun part of my time and present our second annual I Love Ripon banner because. And so here at the community center, we asked our hundreds of volunteers if they would be willing to write something briefly on the banner about why they love Ripon. And I'd like to take a quick moment to read just a few of these because of the impact that you're having by your job. This is how your city members feel about your city. This is an oasis within a crazy world. Everyone is so friendly here. Ripon is the best place for families. I love Ripon because it's beautiful, a small town with friendly people. We love Ripon. I love Ripon because everyone is so nice. I love Ripon. Ripon is my home. The churches are great. I love Ripon because I enjoy volunteering at the Ripon Library, and so on. If you just take a moment maybe to read a few more of those, maybe that will encourage you for your service that you bring to our community. So that's my time, and that's why I came this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Carrie Harris. I reside at 801 Bogarin Lane, and I'm here tonight just to let you know I've moved back into Ripon. I was here from 2004 until I met Martin Harris, and he pulled me away into the country. Now, the only compromise was it was off West Ripon Road, and so I felt like I was still in Ripon. But it was my hope and prayer that we would make it back here. And so we moved here the end of October. We love the city. We have other children and grandchildren here. We're hoping to get more family members here. And I'm just excited to be part of the community again. I've been selling real estate in the Valley for more than 24 years. And so love your town, love everything you guys are doing, and thank you so much.
Okay, my name's Martin Harris, and we're going to do both of these presentations easily within 5 minutes. Well, my wife and I did move back into town. My family has been here. My mother's in the audience, Lucille Harris, and she's been here for almost 50 years. I've got 2 sons and a daughter here in town. Both my sisters are here, although Melissa's a ways out on River Road, but we can still consider her part of Ripon. But we're very excited to be here. A couple of things I'd just like to mention in observations that I've had since I've been here. I feel so safe. I think your Ripon police force, they're respectful, they're kind. The other day they stopped and gave my 2-year-old grandson a sticker, and he was just thrilled. But I am so happy to be here. I don't ever plan on leaving. I have noticed going to my mother's house on North Ripon Road. She lives on Mellow. As I drive back and forth, there's a new fire station that's not staffed, and I'm aware that the mayor and others have been supporting staffing it. Well, our family, my brother-in-law is on the fire board, but we definitely would like to support and help out and staff in that station. And so that'll be something that I figure I'll be talking to people and seeing how we might help out and try to gain public support. But thank you very much. Look forward to being a participant in the city in the future. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Gary Barton. I live at 230 Laurelwood, part of the goat farm. I have a little story to share. I was having a conversation with a fairly well-known member of the city of Ripon in the last several days, and during the course of that mentioned that I had driven by the planning director and saw him in his white vehicle, and the response was, amongst other things, yeah, that's quite a chick magnet, isn't it? She then said, yeah, our son has mentioned, why don't you get a new car? And the response was, what do I need a new car for? This one works fine. Why am I here telling you that? Because far too often public employees and members of the political class think of the public budget as a big trough to belly up to, and you better get it while the getting's good. But here in Ripon, we've got people who recognize that these are dollars that are in fact taken from the public through taxes and various fees. And it's recognized that those dollars have real value and that we should be frugal with the use of those. And then we can do things that are important for the city. I think another member of the staff, Mr. Stevens, do you continue to drive the Jeep, Kai? That's been around a long time as well. And so while some people may wonder why are these guys driving these old vehicles, I think it speaks very well to their character and integrity, and I want to publicly acknowledge that and applaud them. It's one of the reasons, per a previous presentation, why I love Ripon, because that is, I think, a community ethos, that we use public dollars wisely and frugally, and I'm very appreciative of that. So I will just finally say that the planning director's car, I think, is beautiful. Thank you.
So this is my first time speaking, and I wasn't planning on it, but I was encouraged by a few people here too. So my name's Carrie Sweet. My address is 1776 Mary Jo Court. And good evening, Mayor and Council. So a couple years ago, I kind of saw a need in our town when the Ripon Record closed for a community publication, and I joined an organization called N2 Publishing, which is a great organization that puts together high-quality monthly publications for neighborhoods to help build community. The publications are resident-driven, resident contributions of stories about things that people care about most: their community, their kids, pets, local events. So I started that 2 years ago in the Spring Creek neighborhood, and now I'm thrilled to partner with the Ripon Chamber of Commerce, the schools, the city, and trying to bring a resource to all residents in Ripon. So beginning this month, actually it entered the postal system on February 5th. So look in your mailboxes in the next few days for a monthly publication that features the stories that celebrate our community, all the good things, all the positive things, people making a difference. And I encourage everybody to participate, send in ideas, and I hope everybody loves it. I'm really excited. It's a great way for our community to come together and finally have a paper resource. And it's something that's free to all the residents, so it's a gift to our community. So I look forward to getting to know more people, and thank you for letting me talk. That's it.
Thank you. That's it? All right, moving on. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the January 8th and January 31st meetings.
So move.
Second.
Did we do it?
Mike, second. Jake. Dean.
There it is. Okay. All right, moving on. Next is the approval of the agenda as posted. Does anyone have any items that they want to pull from the consent calendar?
I would like to pull 1.4 C.
C,
C, please, yes.
okay?
1.4A.
All right, so with those changes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to pull 1.2E.
1.2E. Okay. All right. Is that it? All right, with those changes, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So move.
Second.
Okay, moving on, consent calendar. Can we have we approve everything else and then take these three, right? Okay, so I need a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended.
So move.
Second.
Okay, now, Lisa, you pulled 1.2E.
Yes, I just wanted to give you an update on what item 1.2E, the general matters invoice for Terpstra Henderson was adjusted from what was originally on the agenda, $7,679.75 to $5,467.25. So the total amount due to them for this month is $16,658.70.
Okay? I think, let's do all three of them and then we'll vote on them.
I
as a
did
group.
mine separate.
Oh, yours is separate, that's right, okay.
So let's just do this one and then we can.
All right, let's do 1.4C.
Okay, that's mine. The reason I pull this, I know we can't do anything with it tonight, but when I was looking at the treasurer's report, I noticed we've got about $17 million at 2.4%, and our pool of $20 million is at average yield of 1.87%. I don't know, and I know that the LAIF is probably as diversified as the pool, probably different kind of assets. But even if we just remove $10 million of that into the LAIF pool, which is safe, we'd probably make about an extra $1,000 a month. And I know you'd probably have to talk to consultants about that. But I think we ought to look at that to see if we can pull up some extra earnings per year, monthly, by doing nothing but moving some assets around. And being as safe, I think we should look into it if we can.
We can certainly look into it. I think this is the first time in my time here that the LAIF has ever outperformed Bank of New York. So I don't know if this is a one-time thing, but we've never seen this before. But we could talk to Chandler Assets and talk to him a little bit about the difference between, or what's going on with the pool right now compared to LAIF.
Well, the other thing is, would be important to know is if they're both liquid. Because if they are and it reverses, you move it back.
Yeah, that's the thing with Bank of New York that we've been cautioned in the past is the liquidity of it.
Okay.
So we can
All right.
talk to him about that, and you bring up some good information. So
All right,
we can
thanks.
talk to him and get some more information.
All right, thanks.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve 1.2E and 1.4C?
Second.
Move.
Okay, Councilman DeGraff, 1.4A.
1.4A portion of it is a contract with the company that I work for, so I'm going to step out for the vote and not be a part of it.
Okay. Can we get a motion on 1.4A?
Second.
Okay. What were you, listening at the door?
Fail? Perfect. I don't want to do that job anyway.
If I could get Mr. McCusker up here, please.
Yeah.
This is Brenton McCusker. For the last 8 years, he served on the planning commission for the city of Ripon. Chose not to go for that magical third term. Decided to step aside, but we wanted to take a moment tonight to recognize him for the work that he did for the city. Sitting on the planning commission is, I would say, a very important but inglorious job. A room like this never shows up for a planning commission meeting. There are times when there's a planning commission and 1 or 2 people, but they're very important because it's their job to take the rules and regulations for new businesses and construction and subdivisions and all that, and make sure that what is being done in town meets all of those rules and regulations. So you have to do a lot of studying, ask a lot of questions, and they make some pretty important decisions because some of those decisions are made at the planning commission, and that's it. It doesn't come to the council unless there's an appeal. So we have put a lot of faith and confidence in them, and for the last 8 years, Brenton has been a very important part of that group of people to help Ripon get where it is and still remain the kind of community that it is. And for that, I want to just take a minute to thank you very much for your help and your participation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. It's a privilege.
You want to say anything? Flora's office.
That's great. Thank you for your service. I am Jason Laughlin with the Assemblyman D. Flores office, and I just want to thank you for your service to the city of Ripon and the planning commission. I have great respect for those who want to leave their community better than when they found it, and I think that your years of service has certainly shown that. Our office has been in Ripon since March of last year, and we love the city, and I hope that you continue to serve the city in other ways. So thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the recognition.
Okay. Moving. Next item, public hearing, community development block grant and home programs. Mr. Zeidevard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. This is the time of year, every year in February, we get to hold a public hearing for deciding of where we're going to use the CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant funds that we receive. They're actually administered through the county, but they are received from HUD, which is a federal program. This is a flexible program that provides basically communities with resources to address a wide range of unique community development needs. Every year we receive, well, this year actually we're receiving roughly about $84,000 in CDBG funds. And out of the $84,000, roughly $12,500 is used for what we call public service programs. So there's service agencies such as Bethany Home Society, Emergency Food Bank in Stockton and San Joaquin County that assist with providing meals to low-income and the elderly people here in town that receive some of those funds. So roughly $12,600 is allocated towards those type of needs. And on the back of the staff report, you'll see we did get requests for those funds that didn't quite amount up up to that amount. So the rest of those funds get pushed back into what we call a public works programs. Those are programs where we go through areas of the town that we can spend those funds. We've in the past done a lot of handicap ramps and sidewalk projects in certain areas of town. Last year, we did allocate those funds towards retrofitting and updating the senior center here in Ripon. And so we are looking to allocate this year's funds as well towards that project as well, because last year's funds won't quite cover the cost of what we're anticipating this retrofit and kind of facelift to be. So that is the recommendation in front of you this evening, is to allocate, let's see, roughly $68,000 in funds that we received towards the retrofit. Additionally, just want to point out that Escalon, the city of Escalon, who's also administers, the county administers their funds, they've decided to forego their public facilities funds, so the county is recommending splitting those amongst the other cities. So there's an extra $17,000 in there this year for us that we can use towards that public works project. So bringing that total to roughly $85,000 that we could put towards that project for the 1920 funds. And then you can see on the chart on the back, the public service programs that have asked for funding from the city of Ripon and the amounts that are there. So at this point, I won't go into too much detail because I did detail it quite a bit in the staff report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Zeiderbar?
I have one quick question. Ken, how much is currently sitting in the GAP fund? So we're allocating 27,000, but there's got to be some sort of balance in it.
You know, I have that figure in my office, but I do want to say there's roughly $100,000 in that gap, which is a down payment assistance fund. That's money that can be used or borrowed to assist low-income families to buy homes in Ripon. It is administered through the county. They'd have to go to the county to apply for those funds. They are down payment assistance. They are funds that have to be paid back, so it's a low-interest loan. The problem they find I think with all our communities at this point, is the housing prices are too high that the down payment assistance doesn't quite get that down payment up enough to where they can actually purchase homes. So in these type of economies that we're having now, these funds tend to grow quite a bit, and then when the economy does take a downturn, you see people maybe taking advantage of that a little bit more. We can actually reallocate those funds to different programs, the home funds. There's also some programs that they can, for people to remodel homes and stuff that meet income requirements for necessary repairs, such as roofing of houses, hot water heater replacements and such like that, that they can also administer through the county. That could be used, these funds can be used for as well.
Because the reason I ask is because if it's going to continue growing, we don't need to put any more money in there. But you're saying this isn't the time where it's going to shrink anyway. It's going to be later on.
Right.
Plus, it grows as people repay the debt, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Thanks.
we don't have any choice about that 27,000. It goes there.
It goes to the home funds go to the down payment assistance. There's very few programs that we can place those in because the county does administer those for the city of Ripon. Like I said, one of them is a rehab program where they can rehab houses. The other one's down payment assistance. We could explore some other opportunities with the county to see if there's other ways to expend those funds within our community. That's something certainly staff can have a conversation with them at the county level to explore.
And there's no limit. I seem to remember last year when we were talking about this, we had let the CDBG funds accumulate for a couple of years, and we were told either spend it or we're going to find somebody who can. These funds, on the other hand, don't have that kind of a restriction.
Correct. The home funds don't have that kind of stipulation.
Okay. And even though we're combining last year's and this year's and next year's together, we're not to that time limit yet.
You're kind of operating in a gray area there. They look at the overall funding. So the county administers funds for the city of Tracy, city of Manteca, city of Ripon. So they look at that big pot of money to make sure that there's a ratio that has to be under. So if we're not expending our funds and other communities are expending their funds, as long as we're under that ratio, we're in good shape. I guess fortunately or unfortunately, the way if you want to look at it, we don't receive quite the amount of funds like the city of Tracy does or Manteca just because of population. So even if we don't expend our 80-some thousand or 68,000 that we typically get, we're really not the ones that push us over that threshold. So they're a little more willing to work with us on timing of projects. But if we're trying to stretch something out for 3 years or something and accumulate for that long, then they really kind of frown on that and they want us to spend those down.
Okay. Any other questions? This is a public hearing, correct? So I'm going to open the public hearing. If there's anybody here who has any input or questions, now's the time. So we'll open the public hearing. Not seeing a rush to the podium. Close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Anybody else have any questions? So you need a motion to approve the proposed expenditures?
Yeah, there's a recommended action in the staff report for you guys.
Okay.
Second.
So now with this money, and I don't know whether it was last year or this year, but you now have enough money to do this retrofit of the senior center, right?
Yes, we are actually going to be bringing back to City Council a contract for services, for design services for a retrofit for that. So we're not quite sure exactly the cost it's going to be, but we knew it was going to be more than the $68,000 because that's also the design services are coming out of that cost as well.
Okay.
We won't receive the 1920 funds until September, anywhere between September and December of this coming year. So it'll be later this year before we'll see anything happen.
All right, thank you. Item number 3A, ordinance number 881. This is second reading and adoption of the traffic control devices ordinance that was discussed at the last meeting. Who's handling that?
I can, Mr. Mayor. Based off the discussion, when this item was introduced at the last meeting, staff has added the sentence related to the chief of police apprising the city council and providing public notice related to the installation of any traffic control devices. That was added to section 10.12.010. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? So after tonight, it's what, 30 days and then it's in effect?
Correct.
All right,
I've got a question.
fire away.
In that sentence, the chief makes the city council aware and provides notice to the public, both of those in such a manner that he deems appropriate, or just notifies the public in such a manner that he deems appropriate?
I would say both. I think the way that we talked about is last time when we installed the stop sign on Miljo, it would be done in a similar fashion where he would come in a public meeting, give notice that the stop sign was going to be installed, and then put notice in the right of way as he did last time. So that's kind of the intent of this language.
Yeah, no, I was just, it kind of could be read both ways, I guess.
Sure, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Any other questions? We have a motion to adopt.
So moved. Second.
Moving on, item 4A, small cell wireless discussion. Who's handling this one?
That's me.
Put that
You're
PDF.
on.
So I'm just gonna go over some pictures with you first before I give my little speech here. And this is the good, the bad, and the ugly of what small towers, cell towers look like. Right here we see on light poles, they're typically on light poles. And yeah, they're about, with a 3-foot antenna at the top, they'll have some equipment. Oh, you have to. Okay, and this is the bad. This is without or limited city input and no standards. So this is when the cell companies kind of come in, and we have some say, but we didn't really outline a design guidelines for them, and so they're gonna install the small cell how the easiest way they can. So that's what the bad looks like. And the ugly is without any city input at all. This is probably what small cells would look like if we did not put any regulations on them. Okay, you could go to the PowerPoint now. So again, here's just some examples of some acceptable designs. What we would typically see are on street lights with the 3-foot antenna at top and some box structure in the middle there. And so the fiber optic runs to the pole, and the wireless companies would be in charge of installing all the equipment for that. And then you have the cabinets that hold the equipment that processes signals, and then you have the antenna at the top. And most wireless providers want to attach to existing poles. They do have the option, though, of putting in a new piece of equipment. So the purpose of this agenda item is to update the City Council on a recent order issued by the FCC related to small cell wireless towers and discuss how to move forward from the action. The small cell wireless towers are planned to be used to update the wireless network to 5G. In order to give you an idea of what that means based on what we know today, each carrier could install around 50 to 60 of these small cell wireless facilities throughout the city. With 4 major wireless carriers, we could be talking about 200 or so facilities installed on existing streetlights. The City of Ripon has taken actions over the last couple of years to oppose the unregulated deployment of small wireless facilities throughout the city, specifically related to Senate Bill 649. The city opposed Senate Bill 649 because it removed the city's local discretionary review of small cell wireless facilities, including locations the facilities are to be installed, equipment used, and aesthetics of the installation. The bill was passed by the California legislature in 2017, but ultimately vetoed by then Governor Jerry Brown. The success was short-lived, unfortunately. The Federal Communications Commission has recently passed an order that limits the city's discretion in approving small cell wireless facilities. On September 26, 2018, the FCC, overseen by Congress, has adopted FCC Order 18-133, which has come into effect as of January 14, 2019. The order requires cities to allow wireless companies to install their equipment on city property and public right-of-way. It also gives specific deadlines on the amount of time we have to review and approve permits, and caps on what we're allowed to charge per permit and also per annual rent. So on this slide, you see annual rent is $270, $100 per permit application fee, 60-day review times if they're connecting to existing structures, and a 90-day review time we're limited to if they're installing a new structure. By this action, the FCC, the city is mandated to carry out the provisions of the approved order. There are several cities who are fighting the FCC order in court. However, unless and until the court orders otherwise, the FCC order is binding on local governments. Bearing an unrealistically fast overturn of the order in court, staff suggests focusing our efforts to limit the impact of these facilities will have on our community, to the extent we are legally allowed, and in a way that is most protective of the public's health, safety, and welfare. This includes updating the city's municipal code to consider aesthetic design requirements, prioritize local locations of small cell wireless towers would be located, requiring a radio frequency emissions survey for each location, per the FCC standard and establish a permitting process. So again, just to review, if on the left you see with collaborative city input, and on the right without collaborative city input. If we don't implement design requirements, then they're going to end up installing something ugly. In the event the judge offers a stay to the FCC order, or if it is overturned in the Court of Appeals, staff recommends preparing an ordinance reverting provisions to their former status as appropriate. Unfortunately, because the reviewing court may stay or invalidate selective portions of the FCC regulations, it is impossible to draft an ordinance that would make such reversion self-executing. So, staff recommends that we comply with the Federal Communication Commission's FCC Order 18-133. It's legally binding to us. This includes design requirements, the permitting process, and updating our ordinance to be in compliance with the law. And do you have any questions?
Just to add to that real quickly, Mr. Mayor and members of council, we will begin in my office putting together an ordinance to comply with this order and leaving open the possibility of amendment in case it is overturned. So we'll be trying to plan for multiple futures, as they say.
I have a couple questions. One, she mentioned, and it's somewhere up here, was the date of April 15th of this year. Does that mean the ordinance has to be in place by April 15th in order to be valid?
It does, and that's going to require us to move very quickly. We're going to have to probably adopt it as an urgency ordinance in order to meet that timeline.
And the April 15th date was specific to the design aesthetics.
So if you don't have something in place on April 15th, they get to do whatever they want?
Yeah, they could take us to court and then install whatever they want, yes.
Okay. The other question I have is one point you made, which may have an impact on what happens later in this meeting. You said that this FCC ruling mandates that cities allow these things to be in place on public property.
Yes.
We have no choice.
We do not have a choice.
We only can control the how, but not the if.
Correct.
And the how to a very limited degree,
Right.
as Liz was saying. Aesthetic is one issue. You can get around the franchise fee limits in certain cases, but for the most part, our hands are pretty tight on these.
Yeah.
I know there's concern about health effects, environmental effects of these. The Telecommunications Act already prohibits local agencies from considering those factors, other than to make sure that the equipment is compliant with federal law. So that once they certify that the equipment they're going to install meets federal standards, that's the end of the story for us. We don't get to consider health effects, environmental considerations, the CEQA process, none of that sort of thing gets to come into play. It's very restrictive.
Yeah. We could try to prioritize where we're going to allow these, but ultimately, if they have a dead zone in town, we have to allow them to provide their services there.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I have questions, yeah. So we can't control our own city then? This is mandated, we can't do anything? Have any of the cities gotten together and said, we're not gonna comply with this and done something about it and talked to the FCC, or is this just something they're mandating? They don't care what we think.
Yeah, they really don't care what we think at this point. This is an area where they intend to preempt local control.
And they can do that?
They can do that.
Unless this court challenge.
Well, let's talk about the court challenge for just a second. In the event they're successful in court, it will not negate the FCC's authority to preempt this field. They'll just say that they did it wrong, and they'll go back and redo it. But the basic point is when the federal government, and in some cases when the state government decides they're going to preempt things and take over, too bad for the local control factor. We don't get to have local control over that issue, and that's what we ran into with the cable television ordinance too. If you remember that one back, we had a lot of lobbying and a lot of legislative action that was taken that had the effect of preempting our ordinance, and we had to go in and change everything. So we're going to have to do the same thing here.
Couple more questions. So one is that, so are stop signs considered city property? So if they wanted to come in and put them on a stop sign, they can?
So there are certain restrictions, like structures can't be over 50 feet tall, and the antennas and the equipment can't be over 10% of the actual structure. So if the antenna is 3 feet tall and the stop sign's 5 feet tall, that's more than 10% of the
So
structure.
that's self-limiting in
Right.
itself.
They've thought of everything.
How about the PG, we don't own all the lights. PG&E still owns some of the lights, right? So they can't put them on PG&E lights, but they can
Correct.
put them on our lights.
Correct.
So what if we sold them all to PG&E?
Then they would go after our city buildings and our other city property. Water towers. Yeah. Or they could build their own structure.
Oh, build their own.
We decided to vote against this as a council, where we're gonna end up in court?
Yeah, what's likely is what we've, I think it was in the handout that you had, that they're asking for permits in some of the larger jurisdictions first, and then they're gonna be coming down to some of the medium-sized and smaller cities.
Well, they're in
But if we-
Modesto, I heard already.
Yeah.
Right.
If we don't have an ordinance in place that gives us, that at least takes some control over this, to the limited extent we can, then they're gonna be able to just walk through.
Because I
this.
was thinking we could control it by our permit fees and stuff like that, but they've basically got that all tied up.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
thought
this
of
is-
everything.
This is a really similar exercise to what we went through with the cable television law. Really similar. Same kind of a concept. We said the same thing. Can we find ways around this and at least require? And as you recall, we were able to get them to underground a lot of the equipment using the environmental review process, but that seems to have been foreclosed in this as well.
Yeah, I would like to add, additionally, Congress has introduced HR 530, which would overturn some of the FCC order, except it's still in favor of the wireless, so it would just give us more power over what we could charge, but that hasn't gone through and been approved yet.
So it would give us
A little bit more
money, but
authority.
wouldn't stop what they're doing.
Right. It would give us more authority of what we could charge and what we're allowed to deny applications a little bit more, but it's still in favor of the wireless companies coming in.
So Tom, my question is, so say you go through, you do the design specs and all that stuff, then for it to come back to us, is it going to be a public hearing? Is it going to be an ordinance? Is it going to be a resolution? And also, is there going to have to be, like we do with some different pieces where there's a 30-day review process before it's enacted?
Well, we would probably need to come back at this with an ordinance. We have an ordinance now on wireless telecommunication towers and antennas. It's chapter 16.9 of the municipal code. It was adopted in 2003 and amended in 2007. But of course, this is a new reality. So we're going to have to go in and repeal the majority of our ordinance and rewrite it to be consistent with this, with the, as we said in the beginning during the presentation, with the opener that in the event the law changes, we can pivot and make the law changes that are favorable to the city. But then so yes, an ordinance would have to be adopted, and it can only take effect 30 days after its enactment, unless of course it's an urgency ordinance. And
Okay.
That's what we need to be working on.
Okay.
Because
And
we can't meet the deadlines otherwise.
Okay. And then how far in advance does an urgency ordinance need to be done in order for it to be?
Oh, urgency ordinances take effect
It can be
immediately.
that day. Okay, I just want to be sure
They
with that.
take effect immediately.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Actually, I have another, go ahead, you go first, and I got another question.
As far as the design standards or what we're gonna allow, that's something that'll be done through engineering side of things, and we'll have a set of, basically like we would for the rest of our standards.
We have a consultant, XG Communities, that has provided us a template that we're working through right now.
And will that be brought back to us as well?
Yes.
It can be.
Part of the package.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I've got a question. So this was done by the FCC. Was it
Correct.
because Congress gave them the authority to do this?
Yes, Congress has given the FCC the authority, and so they are currently the governing body. But like I said, if Congress chooses to do another, this HR 530, it would supersede the FCC order.
Have we contacted our current congressman to show them our concerns with this?
I have not.
We have not at this point. I mean, this is pretty new coming down the pike. And I do think that people, I know there's folks in the audience who are concerned about this, and that is where your attention really needs to be directed. is
That's
to
exactly right.
Congressman Harder and his staff to say, we would like to have local control of this, because your hands are tied as a council. It's frustrating. You'd like to be able to take on some or all of this, but really, there's not much you can do in this arena, and it really needs to start in Congress.
So I think that since we have to comply with, we have no choice, we needed to move forward, but I suggest we have the mayor send a letter from us, whatever we want to say, that we're not real happy about it, that they need to rein this in a little bit and, you know, take into consideration some things that they don't seem to care about.
Yeah, because the legal challenges that are pending to this, you know, are right now revolving about whether there's going to be a stay of the order, and even that doesn't look too promising. In order to get a stay, you have to show that there's a chance you're going to prevail on the merits. And you know, really, when you're dealing with an agency like the FCC implementing congressional authority through Congress's action, the prospect of overturning that is very, very dim.
Sure.
Because Congress in effect has said, we want this done, do it.
Yeah, and as long as the regulations that are adopted by the federal agency, in this case the FCC, as long as they bear what the law calls a reasonable relationship to the legislation, you're good. So we see this all the time in the regulatory arena.
Yeah, the problem is staff brought it to the Congress. Congress said, fine, they didn't read it and they let it go, like everything else they do.
Well, the industry's pretty powerful.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's right, they sponsor their campaigns.
Okay, any other questions? Is there, I know there are people who came to address the council about this issue. If you still wish to do so, you go to the podium. We need your name and address, and remember, you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Monica Ferrulli. My address is 798 South Highland Avenue in Ripon. And we have been very proactive with people all over the state, particularly the brain tumor director in San Francisco, Ellie Marks, a professor that fought really hard with Governor Brown to veto the SB 649 ruling. And I understand that FCC passed the ordinance for January, but there are many, many, many cities, counties, and people fighting that. And so for us to move forward with the April 15th to comply or to try to make it more visually pleasing, if they turn around and say, oh, we're not going to move forward with that, here we are setting up all these 5G cell towers in our town when ultimately we might not even need to comply with that. So I think it's premature to move forward with this and put them throughout our town by the April 15th deadline when it's still being fought on many levels and we're not being forced at this point by FCC to comply with that. We have hundreds of letters from people in the city that are very well against the FG implementation in the city of Ripon. There's many concerns about it. Health is one of the biggest ones. It hasn't even been tested. There's no evidence that it's safe, and these are going to be put outside of our homes of children, mine particularly, who has brain cancer, and I'm not okay with that. And so for us to move forward just to comply so it looks pretty in our front yard, I say we wait until FCC is physically making us do it, if that's what it comes down to, because there's still a chance that that might not happen. I have a stack of letters if you want them for residents too.
You can leave them with Lisa. Based on what she just said, I want to clarify what we've been talking about. We're not talking about getting this done, installations done by April 15th. What we're talking about is having rules in place by April 15th that we can use at the point that the installation occurs, which could happen anytime between now and 2 years from now.
That's correct.
We're not,
The companies could come to us now and demand to install a facility now because it's already past the January 14th day. So,
what, I missed part of that.
so the order started January 14th, 2019. So they could come to us now, and if we refuse, they could take us to
Right.
court, and their court would be expedited.
but how should I put it? The telecommunications company is gonna control when the installation occurs.
Correct.
Not us.
Correct.
We just wanna be ready to control how they do it.
Right.
When that time comes.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had that right.
And can I clarify something Tom said? So you said, so if they come in tomorrow, we have to let them come in however they want to come in. We have no control,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yes.
But you were talking about if we put a resolution together that we control it, you're going to have something in there that if the court's overturned or somehow it gets overturned, our resolution goes away and it just doesn't happen.
Right, well, there'll be a reopener, to the extent that we can, we allow the ordinance to be reopened in the event that the law changes as a result of these challenges.
Hopefully they come after the judge ruling.
My name is Kelly Prime, and I'm a resident here in Ripon. My address is 360 Lannis Court. My concern with us moving forward with even what we're discussing tonight is first of all, there are so many cities in this country that are fighting this. They are not going to come after us immediately. We are small potatoes. There are so many denials that are happening in this type of room all across California. We are given information on a daily basis of cities. There's Millbrae that has fought this. We are ripping, like, they're not going to come after this. We need to hold off on this. We have multiple cancer victims in this town that are children. We need to push back on this as much as we can. As a community, we have to stop this from happening. Weston Elementary School has 3 cancer cases in the past 2 years, and it has a cell phone tower on the campus. There is a problem in this town. We have 101 people who have come forward to us just on Facebook alone. That's not even going door to door, telling us that they have had cancer within a 1-mile radius of Weston Elementary School since 2009, since that cell phone tower was put up. There is a problem in this town, and if we can hold off on any kind of going forward with any planning, we need to do that. And if that means they come after us, then let them come after us. Let the community fight them. Everybody else is fighting them. We need to fight them as well.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Vanessa Dominguez. I live at 647 Mulholland Drive. And I just want to back the two of them up. I helped get some of the letters signed. There wasn't door to door. That was just my small group of family, friends, close neighbors. It was very easy to do. I didn't get fight back from anybody at all. They were either unaware or really against this happening. You know, I feel honestly like this is a human rights issue, and I think the FCC is way, way out of line. You know, I can make adjustments in my own home. I've taken the smart meters out of my home. I've turned the Wi-Fi off. I hardwired my smart TVs. My kids aren't on devices because it's dangerous, you know, and a lot of people might try to argue that, but it is dangerous. I mean, they're not fooling anybody. And so I think if this was to go up in my neighborhood and put my health at risk, my children's health at risk, it's an atrocity. I think it's a horrible, horrible thing they're doing, and anything you guys can do, I'm just here to plead. Write the letters. I mean, I will write letters. Just hearing their stories, it breaks my heart. So anything you guys can do, I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question, if I may. For Tom. I think I have the answer straight, but if we do nothing, they can still put the towers up today, correct?
They can still come in and submit whatever application form we have, and we have to meet the shot clock, as they say, right?
Yes.
So we would not have in that instance an ordinance that controls the things that we can control.
So moving forward with what we're proposing to move forward with right now only gives us the limited amount of control we can have is what we're trying to do, to take over as much control as we possibly can.
Right, and the ordinance will be, as we said in the presentation, will be, we'll take into account whatever measures we can to be protective of public health. And now, you know, this is an ongoing process, it's unfolding, it's a moving target. We intend to bring back an urgency ordinance in March at your March meeting, and we'll know more by then as these state cases move forward and as these requests for reconsideration and other things move forward. So it's a moving target. We'll be bringing it back to you in March, and you can consider it at that time along with public testimony then.
And the fact that we're moving forward with an ordinance proposal does not mean that we can't send letters and contact people and tell them that in our
Yes, just because.
best world, we would rather not be doing this at all.
Right.
Yeah, just because we're complying with the law doesn't mean that we agree with it, and so we'd still be
I'll
able
get together with Kevin and Tom and draft a letter to send to Mr. Harder and to the two senators. Might as well hit them all.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Can you come over here so we can?
So a city the size of Ripon has approximately 200 of these little units. Do all the cell phone companies share them, or is there 200 for each cell phone
As
company?
I understand it, each one for a city our size says they'll need 50 to 60, and there are 4 separate companies, so you're looking at as many as 240 spread around. They don't share.
That's correct.
It's unfortunate that they can't share.
Yeah, hopefully, the Sprint and T-Mobile join, and then there'll only be 3 major wireless, carriers. But right now, there's 4, and they each they're on their own networks.
They can't share? I mean, it's like the technology, they can't just share?
Nope. There's no incentive for them to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to enter into the record an email that I received from a Mr. Herman Dross requesting postponement of adopting this 5G networking in our town, and I did provide all of you guys with a copy this evening.
All right, will do. So at this point, do we need any kind of formal action, or can we go with the consensus of the council being that you get that ordinance up and ready in March, and we will draft a letter to our legislators strongly opposing where this thing seems to be headed?
Yeah, that was going to be our direction, but other than the letter's a good
Right.
idea. But moving forward with an ordinance change was our next step in any event. So we'll take that as a direction from the council.
Any objection?
No, but I have one more thing to add, though. We do have a high rate of cancer in this town relative to other. I mean, this has been happening since I moved to town. I think we should, if we can, get statistics and put it in those letters that, maybe because we experience something a little bit different than the people in San Francisco do, maybe it just doesn't fit here. I mean, I don't know if we can get stats like that
Is that
together.
information in those letters that you?
No, but we can certainly provide.
If you can get that, the sooner the better, we'd appreciate it.
That'd be
Well,
good.
if you want to bring it in and give it to either Mr. Werner or Lisa, then we'll incorporate the information into the letter. All right, anything else? All right. Moving on, item 4B, general fund budget update. Hopefully there's some better news.
Hopefully. So I just wanted to update the council tonight on where we're at with our general fund budget for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. Let me start the next slide there, Dan. I hate it when you mumble.
Go to the next slide.
This is a graph I've showed for the last few years. It compares the revenue we receive each month to the expense we receive. And you can see what happens is for the first 6 months, we really drive our general fund balance into the negative. The blue line, the light blue line is where the balance is over time last fiscal year, and the dark blue line is where we're at this fiscal year, and those numbers correspond to the right side of that graph. So right now, as of December, we're about $1.2 million, a little bit, maybe $1.3 million in the negative. In January, we began receiving property tax. In February, we received some motor vehicle in lieu fees, and that starts driving us out of the negative. But as you can see in this, we're tracking fairly close to where we were last fiscal year, where we ended up with about a $1.4 million surplus. This is a summary of the major revenue sources that we have in the general fund. I'm not going to go through each of them, but you can see, for the most part, they are all doing very well. I'm going to talk a little bit about sales tax and property tax in the next couple of slides, so I'll skip those for now. The rents, leases, and miscellaneous income, that is down because we did receive some one-time money in fiscal year 17-18. It was related to the CNG station and a rebate that we had gotten back, a sizable rebate. The other one I was going to mention, the police department miscellaneous revenue, that is also down related to a one-time revenue that we received in 17-18. We had gotten an ABC grant at that point, and we do not have that grant in 18-19. So that's the major difference in that line item. And then the RDA successor administration fee, it was really a timing issue. We have received the $125,000 and it will show up in the books for the city's general fund in January, but that has since been received. But overall, where we're at least compared to last fiscal year, our general fund revenue is up 4%. So any questions before I leave this slide? Next, Dan. So sales tax report, this is one of our major revenue sources. You can see that, again, we're doing very well, and we continue to see year-over-year growth in our sales tax revenue. A couple things I'd point out on this slide. Fuel sales back in 2008, you can see we're over $1.6 million in revenue just from the sale of fuel alone. At that point, if you recall, gas was about $4 a gallon. And once gas prices went down, obviously that revenue went down. But again, we're back to a time of relatively low gas prices, less than $3 per gallon right now. And you see, for the last 3 years, we've seen increases in revenue from the sale of fuel. So that's a very positive sign, I think more attributed to the economy. But it's great for our revenue. Commercial revenue, we have seen about 130% increase in revenue since 2011. So of the different sources that we get, that's the one that we've seen the most positive gains. Again, likely caused from just a strong economy right now, but I would also attribute some of that at least to the efforts by the city related to economic development. As you recall, over the last few years, the city council has approved reducing commercial development fees. We have waived the interest portion for benefit assessment fees that are applied to different properties. And lastly, a sales tax incentive program. So the first one that has gone through that program is Bow Country. We are seeing them showing up on our sales tax rolls right now, so that is part of that increase also. So I would say since 2011, very positive growth, obviously, in commercial revenue. Manufacturing and restaurant revenue is pretty much the same as it was last year. Not a lot of growth in either of those sectors.
Can you go back to that one a minute?
Sure.
That little blue thing in the bottom right-hand corner, is that just a mistake, or is that some other kind of sales tax that we haven't had before?
Very far right.
I'm just asking.
It's a glitch.
It's a mistake.
I'll actually take credit for pointing it out.
He found it. I just said so.
How'd you even see it?
When I put this slide together, I was wondering why everything was scrunched to the left.
Oh.
And so that must have shown up, and I never saw it.
I was trying to clean the screen up.
Thank you. Property tax is another very large revenue source for the city of Ripon. You can see this shows the assessed value in Ripon. It's not the revenue we receive. I wish it was. It's just the assessed value of property from 2006 to present. So 11 and 12, we hit our low point with property value that lagged behind the recession. But you can see since then, we have seen probably about 6 years of 4 to 5% increases in assessed value. Again, very, very positive sign for.
Is that residential or is that total?
Total.
And I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but we really don't get much from property tax anymore because it all goes to the county.
Correct.
Okay.
So expenses. I summarized it by wages, burden, healthcare, as you can see on the left, a few different items, major items that we incur over the year, and again compared it to last fiscal year for the period of July to December. For the most part, we've seen increases of about 2.5% compared to the previous fiscal year. A couple I would point out, I think we've talked about a lot of these in the past. PERS retirement, those increases are largely related to changes in the discount rate by CalPERS outside of our control, so we are incurring those additional expenses now. We have done different things in the past to try to mitigate those as much as possible. We have prepaid unfunded liability at one point. We are working and trying to figure out what that savings has looked like to see if that's something that the council may want to be maybe interested in doing again in the future, but that is related to the change in discount rate largely.
Well, and they continue to ratchet that down, so that's
Right.
continue.
Yeah, we're not at
gonna get
the
worse.
7% yet. I think right now we're at the 7.25%. So you have another year of going down. Exactly right. Workers' compensation, that is really just related to the experience factor of the city. Over the last few years, we've had more employees injured on job and going into that system. One of the things that we did in the last year or so is we did a carve-out program. Essentially, we negotiated with the Public Works Union and developed our own system outside of the state's worker compensation system. So we think we are seeing some benefits from that. I don't think it's from a monetary standpoint, but a timing standpoint of getting employees healthy and back to work. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple months, but that's the reason we've seen some increases there. Operating expenses, what it looks like is there's some timing issues in that increase, as well as we've been hiring more consultants to help mitigate the workload with our staff related to development. So obviously there's been a lot of building going on with different subdivisions and underground. We've hired some consultants to help us through that, as well as a consultant to help out with plan check in the building department.
What is that burden?
That's like the taxes that come along with the wages, state and federal taxes, disability. So overall, 6.5% increase compared to the same time period in the previous fiscal year. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think overall where we're at, it's very positive and not too far from where we were last fiscal year at this time.
Looks good.
Are you saying you want gas prices to go up?
No, he wants boat country to
Better
sell
not
more.
answer.
He wants boat country to sell more boats. That's what he wants.
Yes.
Daryl, get that.
I have
train-
one
get
question.
train check going.
Your report shows that expenses are up 6.5%. Do you have any sense of where income is, whether it's up, down, or the same?
It was up 4.5% compared to fiscal year, the previous fiscal year, the same time period, the same fiscal year. I also looked at where we're at compared to the budget. I'm gonna go a little bit from memory, but where we budgeted, I think expenses are actually down 1% compared to what we budgeted, and revenue is up on the order of 5% compared to what was budgeted so far, at least through this part of the fiscal year.
Okay. Any questions? Moving on. Lieutenant Sauer, do you have anything to report on?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to give two success stories from our mesh and license plate reader cameras within the last week, which has been encouraging. One of the success stories within the last week is we've experienced within the last few years numerous break-ins at a particular location in town. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to apprehend that suspect we haven't been able to obtain any evidence or any witnesses or anything like that. But recently, our detectives were able to view our license plate reader camera around the time when these thefts were occurring, and we're fortunately able to develop a suspect lead and are still working on that case. So that's very encouraging. I can't say that's the same suspect through all the past years, but definitely related to some of the past thefts we've been having at that particular location. And also, we had a recent complaint at the skate park that there was a subject passing around or using illegal substances. Usually, we are not able to, by the time our officers get there, usually we're not able to determine who exactly was using the illegal items, but through looking at the mesh camera, we were able to identify the suspect, which he was ultimately contacted and cited. So those are two good examples within just the last week that has been very beneficial for us. So I just wanted to share those. And information technician Dan Brannon has some more information on the cameras and has a little PowerPoint to give some more information on that.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for blurring out my face.
I got you.
I thought that car looked familiar.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Last month's meeting, I believe Mayor Zuber, you had requested a status update, similar to what I had done when we began the camera upgrade. And so this is the companion piece to that for the license plate readers. We've had a couple more that were actually installed this morning, so that the installation continues and is ongoing. But I just wanted to give you kind of a real quick rundown of the capabilities of it. Before I get into it, we're not using a whole lot of live pictures from it, purely just out of respect for privacy. One of the major concerns, probably the biggest criticism that we heard of license plate readers in general, is just the privacy implication. And privacy groups really hold that as soon as you identify a license plate, which we all know is public information we see out on the road, but as soon as you correlate that with a timestamp and a location, it becomes pretty private information. So we've blurred some things out really just to respect privacy where we can. In other cases, we just use our police vehicles as examples. So what you see here is kind of the demonstration why these cameras are so powerful. On the left is what you'd see during the daytime, and that's about the same image that you would see from just a regular camera, like the ones that we had shown just a few minutes ago. On the right side is what you see. That's both the infrared capability of the camera as well as the inset image is the license plate image. And if you look, there's really not a huge difference in what you see on the license plate compared to what you see on the vehicle, and that's really the power of these things. So prior to this technology, when we'd have cameras, you'd have a nighttime break-in, you'd pull video, and it's just blurred images. Because of the really powerful infrared illumination with these cameras, day or night, it sees the same thing. It's really not dependent on visible ambient light. It brings its own light. And that's why one of the boasts of this equipment, they claim they can read a license plate at 200 miles an hour. Because there's so much light, it's really not, doesn't take much ambient time. We haven't seen an example of that. Most of the time you get anywhere near that is...
Haven't seen it
yet.
Did I hear you right? 200 miles an hour?
That's the claim. In a fixed installation, in a fixed installation, you never see it. Some of the mobile installations, if you think about on the freeway, if you have a vehicle going somewhere around 70 miles an hour and a car going the opposite direction at 100 plus, you really could theoretically approach that speed, and they're still capable. They can still read plates at that speed as well. So there's really no limitation there. As the lieutenant mentioned, one of the biggest utilities of this is really for our investigators. What we have, once we've begun the installation of these, what we really have is a chronology of vehicles when they came into town and in a few circumstances when they leave town. And that really lets us paint a picture and develop a timeline, especially when we overlay it with timelines and timestamps of crimes. The instance that he mentioned we were able to really develop that lead based on correlating time. So when a car came through the reader, and then when crimes occurred, we've kind of been able to build that up. One of the other big uses is a lot of times a reporting party would have a partial license plate. So they'd say, you know, I didn't really get the plate. It was a dark blue car and it started with 123. Well, our traditional databases, we can run a partial plate of 123, but you get about 1,000 vehicles and there's no geographic constraint. With this, we can program that same, you know, partial plate in there and constrain it to the last 10 minutes around when the crime happened, and you may have 2 or 3 cars that might hit it, you know, on the high side. So really it helps them narrow down those searches, and whereas a partial plate may have been something to go on but not incredibly useful before, now that becomes a really, really useful piece of information. So that, compared with date and time reports, really lets them establish a pattern of vehicles coming and going and kind of relate those to crimes. One of the other big tools that they've started using now is they can submit a plate to what the system calls a hot plate. So if they get a specific license plate and maybe we don't have probable cause to stop that vehicle just outright, we can put that plate in the system and they can get a notification that somebody who has probably been related with a crime just came into town, and we can deploy resources and go really concentrate on those areas that they may be targeting and really focus our resources there. The other big tool is this system in particular, this vendor is, they provide federated search. So we have the ability to share information with, as of today, we're sharing with 60 other agencies. Nationwide, most of them are focused in California, but we can share those same reads. So in the process of developing a pattern or figuring out, you know, movement of vehicles as they relate to crimes, they can search reads really nationwide and kind of gain some information, some resources there. This system also comes with a mobile application, which we never had before, so our detectives out in the field can run searches on license plates and do the same sorts of information sourcing while they're out in the field responding to crime, and not be tied to just when they're back at the office. They can add hot plates, so while they're on the scene of a crime, rather than waiting until they get back to the office, they can start that search and start getting notified about those plates. They can do searches, and they can even take a picture with their phone's camera and run it through the license plate reader system as if it had driven through a reader. This is just a real rundown. So we pull 3 lists from the Department of Justice: stolen vehicles, felony want vehicles, and then the really, really big one is their lost or stolen plates. So we get any of the vehicles statewide that are on that list, we'll get notifications instantly when they come through. As well as the ad hoc lists that are created by the users as they're using the system. When there is an activation, our dispatchers see this window. So it's a bright red notification and an audible notice that repeats. So this one happened to be a stolen vehicle. They get an audible notification, and we blurred out the location of it, like I said, just out of respect for privacy. This is live data that we read. So they get that. They immediately run the license plate just to make sure that it's that the information that they're seeing is the most recent, most accurate information according to the state databases. It also tells them the source of the hit, whether it's a lost or stolen plate or a stolen vehicle. In this instance, this demonstrates what we call a near match. So it's hard to see in real clear detail, but in the corner, this actually wasn't the same plate that was stolen, but because it was within 1 character of a stolen vehicle, the system generated an alert really to protect against, in this case it was a T versus an I, and if you think about it on the license plate frame, quite a few times a T will be read as an I or vice versa because of that frame. So when it's within 1 character, it generates a hit anyway. Our dispatchers look at it, and in this case they went, oh, it's not an actual read, but it gives us the ability to not miss those just because of an occluded plate. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but hopefully that gives you kind of a general idea of what we're doing.
Have we finished installing all of them, or are we still in the process?
We're still in the process. So we've got 3 more were installed today, and then we're held up. We have a meeting with Caltrans on Thursday to try to get clearance to finalize the installation there. We've been back and forth with them quite a bit, and it seems to be a game of frankly, it seems like at least the leadership is on board with the idea in principle, but when we talk to the people that are actually, you know, rubber stamping the agreements, they've kind of said, no, it's against our rules and we're not moving forward. So I hope to gain some traction and move forward on Thursday.
How many licenses
So there's 21 cameras, but that's a little bit misleading. There's 11 sites. So some of the sites have 2 cameras, basically to cover 2 lanes.
21 and the regular cameras, we have like 76 or
76, yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else? No, sir. Ted?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to report on our water usage for January. We were at 18% January compared to 2013. In January of the previous year, we were at 12%.
So we got better.
Got better compared to the months, yes.
Anything else? Mr. Stevens? Hey, you want to move down here?
You are going to sit next to the principal. Timer on some of these guys.
I don't have to be anywhere until 9, so don't worry about it. Mr. Zeiderbar?
Yeah, just a really quick item. Monday is a holiday, so we will be having a planning commission on Tuesday night next week at 6 o'clock. And we have 3 items on the agenda.
3?
Next week. And so if you're sitting at home, wondering what to do, come down and join us.
Mr. Peace?
Yeah, just real quick, I did give the council a updated project list, and there's nothing really significant that's changed. Our Duck Boulevard project is we're looking to get that out to bid hopefully next week. And then also one that's not on here, Caltrans, they have a project on the Main Street overpass there. They're going to be putting in curb gutter and sidewalk. They're taking out that guardrail, and we found out about this a while back. I wasn't notified by Caltrans that they're starting very soon, but I did find out from the contractor. They put up their pre-construction signs to notify everyone, so that'll be.
Where is it going to be?
It'll be on the area where the AC path is currently.
So on the north,
It'd be on the north. It'd be on the north side, but it goes all the way around. So on the north side,
both from
right.
end to end?
Right.
Oh, wow.
So, and they have
Main
some
Street
handicap ramps
overpass on
as
the
well.
north side, now there's an asphalt path that you walk, they're gonna replace it with concrete, I guess.
Okay.
I was wondering, because there've been people down there messing around for about a week now.
Yeah, I don't know if some of that's finishing up their the ramp metering portion. They still had some
They got a
some
traffic
electricals.
counter out there now.
What's that?
They got a traffic counter out there now.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and that was it.
I have to say, I appreciate this, because I get questions a lot about, I've heard about this, and having this, you can at least tell people where we're at, and it helps a lot. So thank you. Ms. Quillisi?
I don't have anything else, thanks.
Yeah.
Mr. Terpstra? No? Mr. Werner?
Nothing to report.
All right, Dean, you're on.
I'm off.
You're off. Mr. DeGraff?
Yes. As always, there's not many of you left, but to the members of the public who attend, appreciate you being here. For those that spoke, even more appreciated. Public's input is key to what we do here, so appreciate it very much. Other than that, I think that's it. I will bite my tongue on some other things I could talk about today.
And I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Nothing to report.
I would remind everyone we are in the height of Almond Blossom Festival season.
Yes, sir.
And I don't think anybody here except for the director and myself, and those 2 ladies, we were at the fashion show last night. It was.
I was.
Oh, that's right, you were there too. It was good.
It was very
You
good.
said those 2 ladies?
You're gonna cause a problem up here, and we're gonna have to do something about it.
Exactly. Both of us.
And there's more on the way, and it's only, what is it, 9 days from now? Counting the minutes?
Blossoms are starting to come.
But in 12 days, it'll be over.
I can't quit.
Thank you all for this evening, and we'll see you in a month.
Hit the gap.
Meeting adjourned.